Well, we are so excited to be joined by Kerry Butler. Kerry has a BFA from Ithaca College. She's been on Broadway in all kinds of stuff. Too many to name. Beetlejuice, Mean Girls, Catch Me If You Can, Rock of Ages, Xanadu, for which she received a Tony nom, many more. She was in Bat Boy, which I saw when I was a wee lad and was so blown away by both you and Caitlin, who we've already had on the pod. So cool. All over television and film in Gilmore Girls, The Mindy Project, 30 Rock, many more, and also a fellow podcast host, the host of Breaking Broadway. So I'm really excited to talk shop, get inside baseball on some of the inside baseball. Kerry, how are you? Welcome on the show.
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I know we're going to do a little back and forth. We're going to make this kind of a home and home situation. So this can be a pretty free-ranging convo. I would love to start us off, if you don't mind, with the first question I ask all of my guests, which is just if you could take us back to you around 17 or whenever you were looking at colleges, really. I'd just love to hear like, what were you thinking about in terms of like, sometimes with our students, we talk like, what's your mission statement? What are you looking for in a college experience? What were you hoping for as you were applying and thinking about this whole process?
Sure. So I was already professional. I had already had an agent. I've been doing commercials since I was like 9,
Mm-hmm.
and I grew up in Brooklyn, so it was easy for me to commute into the city to see shows all the time. I had been auditioning for Broadway shows, but hadn't gotten any. Had
Mm-hmm.
only really done TV and film, and so I feel like from college perspective, I was hoping that that would kind of push me over the edge. Like I would find out what I was doing wrong, why I wasn't getting stuff, and help
And
me to become a much better actress than I was.
yeah.
Um, but it's funny, growing up in Brooklyn, I didn't go to like a fancy high school. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my school had like zero arts, and no one was guiding me to, I didn't
Uh-huh.
really know any of the good schools. And back then, I'm old, there were like very few, like five musical
Mm-hmm.
theater programs to choose
Mm-hmm.
from. So I knew Carnegie Mellon, I guess I knew Boston. Um, and I had done a cabaret in the city. I used to do, things like that for free all the time. And someone in the cabaret who I thought was fantastic had gone to Ithaca.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, oh, wow, if she went to Ithaca, then it must be a good program. And I went there and kind of fell in love with the school and with the campus because being in Brooklyn, I had never been in the
Uh-huh.
suburbs really. And
That's
so,
Elizabeth's dream for Solvay is like, can we go to an upstate school so that I can get out of the city? I'm like, all right,
yes,
careful. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would say my dream was getting out of the city and also getting a really great theater
Yeah.
education.
And you definitely wanted more training. It wasn't like you're like, I just want a college experience, but I'm already working as a professional. We've had some people on, Krista Rodriguez was sort of felt like, she kind of was like, I feel pretty cooked. I mean, she went to NYU for a couple of years, but she felt like ready to go. You didn't feel at 17, 18, like, I'm basically ready to work. I don't need the 4 years of training. You felt
I
like you did
didn't.
want that training.
I
Yeah.
didn't. I feel like by senior year, I was ready. Then
Uh-huh.
I thought about not staying for my senior year because it is so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm glad I did.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay, and then just give us, I'm sure you did some of this on your pod already. I'm sure some people have heard your journey from sort of college to, you already had representation, it sounds like, but continuing representation to now actually booking all these Broadway shows and the star you've become. Can you give us maybe the Cliff Notes version of what was that like then, graduating and then sort of hitting the industry, breaking Broadway as you've done?
Sure. So I had an agent and but again, they weren't they were I was like a really really big booker of commercials, but they were not confident in my acting ability. So
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't send me out. And when I was at school, once things at first, also I want to say for everybody, I almost got kicked out of my program. I wasn't somebody who like
A
glided
rebel.
through and got the leads in every show. I got one of those letters,
Uh-huh.
like it's not working for you.
And what
um
wasn't working for you? Was it was performance related or was it
yeah,
behavioral
yeah,
or what were
I
you
think
not doing
no,
well?
not
No, no. I
behavior.
was like, Carrie,
No,
tell us the
not a
details, the
but I think they just didn't
college.
think I was good. I don't think they
Uh-huh.
was good good enough or
Wow.
something. So I just and I think and this is something I always say when I'm teaching. I think, part of it is like just being able to take rejection and just be able to
Mm-hmm.
take criticism and like push yourself more and not let it break you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people from my school, so many of them were much more talented than me, but they don't have the career that I
Mm-hmm.
had. Uh, and I think partially because I can just like let things go and
That's
not
so
take it to
interesting.
heart.
That
Uh,
when they receive that negative feedback, it may have crushed them. Where you go, that's a letter. All right, that's going to push me to work harder,
that's
and I'm going
right.
to go to that next
That's
place.
right.
And
So
the letter you're speaking of, just as this is now in the world of sort of informal cut programs. We're still, it's
yes,
still
that's
around.
right.
The letter means it was sort of a probationary.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you're on
this is
probation.
this fear. Then I've been doing this college process for 20 years now. This pervaded for years after this sort of cut program still existed, where every parent would say, "I don't want this. I don't want a cut program. I'm so scared of this idea of a cut program." But just maybe, do you mind informing listeners a little bit, like what are you talking about with these letters?
Yeah, so basically that it's probation. I guess, if you don't improve, then you can stay in the school, but you're out of the acting program. The acting program was very small. I feel like there were maybe 30 kids in my class, and we did all of our classes
Uh
together.
huh.
And it was a full musical theater, so it was basically a double major because musical theater majors back then were even like new.
Uh
And
huh.
so I had like, all the classes in the music school, which Ithaca is known for their music school. And then I had all the separate classes in the acting school. And the music school I wasn't on probation with. I was on probation with the acting because they just didn't think I was getting it, I guess.
It's such a foreign idea, I think. Maybe it's just a parenting difference. I mean, we're on the opposite ends, I guess, of the parenting spectrum. I've got a toddler, and
Mhm.
I'm one who's about to go to college. But like, I cannot imagine, getting a probationary letter about my child because their acting talent wasn't up to snuff. I'd be like, what is she doing wrong? Like, so she, bullying kids, or she, it's like the idea of being like, oh no, she might not get to stay in the school because we don't think her acting talent is good enough.
Do
Just
they
feels
not do that
insane.
anymore?
No, and that's not.
Oh, really? That's
I
done?
mean, really, there will be schools where they would say, if you're not keeping up with the work, would say, hey, you're not keeping up with class, you're not attending class, you're not. But now, once you've done this rigorous, crazy audition process, too many people. I mean, once you've gotten into a 1% school or something, and you did the
Right.
pre-screens, you did the whatever, to then be told freshman year, you know what, it's not your fault at all. We just don't think you're up to snuff. Feels
Mhm.
so insulting and feels so like it can't be, right? Whereas I think that exists a little bit more maybe when there wasn't quite as much rigor on the cut of getting in, right? Where it wasn't quite as hard to get in, and so then they're like, we'll get to know you a little bit, and then we'll do the real evaluation of who's got it.
Yeah, and also, I mean, so much of it is objective, right? Like one person doesn't think you
You mean
have it.
subjective? Yeah.
I mean, subjective. Yeah,
Yes,
like
totally.
it's their own.
It's
I mean,
acting
I think
talent. Like, what is
especially with
this? Yeah.
acting, when I teach people, like I would never tell anybody you don't have what it takes. I might say
Right.
you need more work, but
Well, and even when you talk about acting in general, yeah, it is so subjective. It's like,
yeah,
I think that feels really truthful. It's like, but that's to me. I mean, that's to me, the truth is one thing, but that doesn't mean that is truthful or that is fake or that is, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay, so I went through that whole thing, and I auditioned for my agents, and with work I had done at college.
mhm.
So, in college you don't really always necessarily work on things that are marketable.
Uh-huh.
So I went into my big. They were a big agency, one of the top agents, with a monologue by Ionesco.
Uh-huh. They're like, this is exactly what we're hoping for. We want some great
Very
Inesco.
avant-garde clicking of the mouth.
Oh yes. Oh
Like,
yes.
but no, I'm thinking like, well, this is what they want. This is
They wanted me to be a
real
real
acting,
actor. I'm a real
obviously.
actor now. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
funny.
So I did it, and they were like, can you just come in and do something, be yourself? Like,
Uh-huh.
if you can be yourself, we can work with you.
Uh-huh.
So, anyway, at a certain point, you're like, these people just don't believe in me,
Yep.
And so I did the college showcase, and I got a new agent from my
Hmm.
college showcase. And I stayed with the other agents. I stayed with the other agent for commercials because
Commercially,
they
yeah.
always send me out. And I had this new agent for legit work.
Hmm.
Um, and then I got my first job while I was still in college.
Uh-huh.
I got the European tour of Oklahoma
Oh my.
through Germany.
Oh my. Which you're
Yeah.
gonna try to do virtually while you're attending school? How does that work?
Well, I got it, and then I knew right when I left
Oh, it
school.
was
So
right
it was
after
like,
you left.
you
Amazing.
leave college and you get to backpack. I got to
So
backpack
cool.
doing a show.
That's so cool. Yeah.
So it was amazing, an amazing experience, crazy experience because,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't equity. And so we were like driving 6 hours to the next city in some part of Germany.
On the wrong
All of our
side of the
stuff is on
road.
the
What's happening?
bus.
Yeah.
Our bus got stolen
Oh my God.
with all of our stuff on board. It
Unbelievable.
was, I mean, like the stories I have from that tour are crazy, but amazing job for my first
Uh-huh.
job out. And I ended up getting nodes on my vocal cords. I played Ado Annie and I literally couldn't
Oof.
tell. Because my school never taught me to belt correctly.
Uh-huh.
So it was like they taught me classically training,
Mm-hmm.
but because musical theater was so new, and I think it's still like, I don't think many people still teach like mix.
Mm-hmm.
So I never learned that. And I got nodes on my vocal cords. I had to leave the tour. And then I started studying with Liz Kaplan. And then that's where I really found like how to be healthy, how to sing the
Uh-huh.
way I want to sing, belting, but do it healthy and be able to do it 8 times a week.
So cool. I mean, what a journey. What a way to learn those lessons.
Yeah.
Y- did you know at 17, 18, did you know it specifically was musical theater? You talk about it being kind of a newer major. Did you know, hey, I want to be specifically on Broadway as opposed to like just an actor in TV
Oh,
and
I
film?
100% knew that.
You knew you wanted to sing. Yeah.
Yeah, like one of my friends from school just recently told me, I don't remember this, but she said like we got asked at, when you come into the city and do all those workshops and stuff before we would have, I can't remember, but we were meeting with industry people and there
Mm-hmm.
was some kind of like, positive thing. And I was like, I want to be on Broadway within 5 years. And she was like, and you were on Broadway within 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And like nobody else put anything like that down on the paper. But she was like, you knew.
You knew. That's visualization. You're putting it on the poster board and making it real.
Mhm.
I have a couple questions about this later, but I'd love to maybe dive into. You talked about marketing yourself, and we've asked a number of successful industry people sort of what their relationship with type is. We certainly talk on the college end the kind of traps of type of like, certainly with MTCA, our philosophy in the college process. Please do not limit yourself to like, this is how you think the world is going to view you, and so I'm gonna play princesses. I should do a princess kind of song. We definitely disagree with that, right? But now you're talking about try to reconcile the Ionesco stuff you're working on in college with sort of what is marketable and what you think you're going to get cast as. What has your relationship with type or with branding or marketing or however you want to think of it in terms of how you've sold yourself to the world to be as successful as you've been?
Yeah, I think going out, I looked super young. So that was really helpful. I could play a 16-year-old for like
You still
15
could, Carrie.
years.
Maybe it's a good filter, but I think you still could play 16. I believe it.
Yeah, thank you. um, so I knew that, and here's another thing I tell college students: like, some people don't grow. You're in college and you're playing 30-year-olds. When you get out into the world,
Mm-hmm.
like that's kind of where you live. And
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get work for a while because there are 35-year-olds who are going to nail
Mm-hmm.
that part and they're going to get those parts. So you're going to have to wait it out. And so
Mm-hmm.
I would say for those people, like, don't come to New York until it's your
Mm-hmm.
time. But so for me, it was my time. I knew playing young was my thing. And sure enough, like my first Broadway show that I got right after that tour was Blood Brothers. And I played like, a 10-year-old. We also play kids in the show. And then I
Mm-hmm.
also I understudied and played adults too, but I had to have that range. I had to be able to be really childlike. So I knew, and I feel like the stuff I learned in college, all of that kind of pushing you from the boxes that we put ourselves into, that's kind of helped me have a career.
Mm-hmm.
So, and for me, once you're in that box, like, oh, she's the cute musical theater girl,
Yep.
then you have to kind of like take the chisel and start like showing them that you can do other stuff. And so that's when I would do like free stuff of things that no one would expect me doing.
Uh-huh. So you're still maybe making some money. You may be doing a third Broadway show where you go, all right, I'm castable as this thing and I'm not going to resist it completely, but I want to show the world, look, I can also do this. Was there a point where you said like, I'm not going to take another role as a child, or I'm not going to take another role that feels like it's now starting to limit me box wise? Did you think about that at times of your career where you go, all right, now for this project, I have to pick something that is different in some way or that somehow subverts my quote unquote type?
I definitely would still be playing 16-year-olds if I could. Like just just putting that out there. That was never an issue for me. I was like, yes, I still got it.
Yep. That's almost exactly what Celia said. Celia Kenny Bolger came on the pod, and I sort of asked, I was like, "Oh man, it seems like you've been traveling a lot of kids." She was like, "I'd play it. I keep doing it if I could." She was like, "I played it 3 years ago or whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, it's amazing."
Yeah, but I did make conscious choices to take readings or to take out of town shows in parts that people wouldn't expect me. So then I could have my resume, I could talk about it. So I wouldn't turn down necessarily. I've never turned down things. I've turned down auditions for things that I didn't want to do, but I've never turned down actual jobs. It's more about like in the downtime that we all have
Yep.
in those dry spells where you're like, well, am I ever going to work again?
Yep.
Those are the times I kind of looked for ways to break out of my box.
Yep. Well, and how did you decide? Because obviously you did get to a point, and again, if you want to give us a little more of here to here to here in terms of the jumps of what happened, but you obviously got to a point pretty quickly where you had the luxury of choice. I know it might still feel like, oh gosh, I'm never going to work again. But on some level, you might say, I've done 5 Broadway shows now. I do think there is another one coming at some point. How did you choose what projects to work on? I feel like that's something Elizabeth and I have talked about a lot now, that like once you've achieved a certain level of success, it's sometimes harder to like, what kind of workshop am I going to take? What kind of out of town thing am I going to take that might turn into the thing that is really exciting? Like, how do you make the choices of going, I believe in this project. I think it's worth investing my time into, especially in those early stages?
For the most part, I didn't make those choices. I felt like I trusted the universe and the best choices were made for me. In terms of like Bad Boy, I had no idea what it was.
Mm-hmm.
If I was given a Broadway show over Bad Boy, I probably would have taken it, and it could have been a flop, but I didn't. But it's like so many times when you're in it, it's so hard to know. And for those who don't know, Bad Boy was like an amazing show, and it actually, even though it was off Broadway, it definitely put me on on the map.
Mm-hmm.
I got Hairspray, I think, because they saw me in Bad Boy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, in some ways, I wonder in the conversation of type too. It was a fun kind of subversion of, if we saw you as this like sweet, innocent, even though you kind of were playing that, but the show was so funky and weird that you got to kind of break out of that.
I was very bratty in that show and off kilter kind of.
Yeah.
So I would make the choices over putting my family. Those are the things. Like I would say, okay. So here's an example. So recently I was working on National Lampoon's Vacation for a long time. I thought it was a really fun project, really like good part for me since I'm a mom. And they were going with me the whole time. They were like, this is your part. It's you. It's all you, blah, blah, blah. And then they told me it was going out of town. And they said, you have to go. And it was much longer than I had originally been told. And they were like, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to, otherwise we have to find somebody else. And I was like, and so I wasn't sure what to do. And I was doing Beetlejuice at the same time. And my daughter said to me, but mommy, why would you leave us when you're already doing another show? Because even though I'm doing Beetlejuice, like I'll still be with them all during the day. And we made all these plans. Like I put on shows with her and her friends in our garage. So we were doing a lot of fun. We had all these plans, like what show we were going to do this summer. And we were talking about it. And so
she's like, you're doing 2 shows. You're doing Beetlejuice and the show in our garage. I got 2 shows booked. You don't need another, Mom. Come on.
And so it would mean leaving her and going off to, I don't remember where, maybe California or something, to do this other show. And so I went to them, I said, my daughter said this to me, and like, I can't be like, well, this could catapult my career. I can't be like that to her, because she's right. I'm working. We don't need the money because I have a job. Why would you leave me to go do that? So those are the kind of decisions that I've had to make
early on
my family.
And early on, are you sort of more listening to agents? Is that sort of guiding you? Do you have a manager at this point? Do you have, are you talking to other friends of just going, what seems like the place I should be investing my time and my money in terms of relationships, in terms, is it about the people you want to work with? I guess, once you have that luxury of choice, and I don't mean to overemphasize like, you always had 6 shows sitting on your lap that you could choose between, but, but what are you thinking about in terms of just as you're trying to I think it's impressive to book a Broadway show for anyone. To break into Broadway is impressive, but also even more impressive to sustain that career of going show and then another show, another show. So as you're trying to establish that career, was it all let go and let God, and I'll see what the projects come, or was there any kind of strategic thought, I guess, behind? I think I want to do more of
I
this. I
think there
think I
was
need
a
to do this.
strategic thought in my own mind, and it went against my agents a lot and my
Mm-hmm.
managers a lot. My strategic thought was I want to be a working actor.
Uh huh.
And so after I did Xanadu and I was nominated for a Tony for the Best Actress, the thing I did next, which really surprised people, was a very small role in Catch Me If You Can.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, people didn't really want, I had to take a pay cut. People didn't really want me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved that show. I loved those people. And I loved this part. And I thought, I want to sing this. I don't want someone else singing this song every single night. And so those are the things, like I like playing the lead one time and then playing a supporting character
Mm-hmm.
and I like the joy of working. I like the joy of challenging myself and finding different kind of things. And so I go against my agents all the time.
Well,
They
no,
don't
that's
like me.
almost exactly what I was getting at. Is I do think those are often really tough decisions, and often happen before a level of huge success. I mean, so often young actors are told, "No, no, don't take that part. We need to keep you available for pilot season." And you're like,
Yes.
"I'm not even working. Like, I haven't even done anything yet." Like,
Yeah,
they're just
my
like, "No,
agents
there's
would
a
tell
lot
me
of
that
buzz
all the
about you. A
time.
lot of buzz." You're like, "So I'm
And
for the
yes,
sake
and
of
I
buzz,
did
I'm going
that.
to turn
I
down
did
these
make that
jobs."
mistake. I
Yeah.
made that mistake like several times. So I feel like I learned from that.
Uh
Like
huh.
I'm not waiting around for to get a pilot. If I do, we'll see what happens or,
Right. And it's not to say that's always the wrong decision, because then you book the huge. Some people do, and
Right,
they book the
right.
huge hit, and it's amazing. And but I do think it's especially coming from the world of like, okay, so let's say you're an MTCA student, if you're listening to this, and you've had like supportive mentors help you to college. Then you have these amazing college professors. They help you through that part of your 4 years, right? And then you graduate into the world, and often, though not always, some people do have this wonderful supportive relationship with their representation. But I think often there is that almost adversarial. I mean, it's not like a negative experience, but they're there to make money. They're there to say, "Hey,
Yes.
no, this is not the right decision for you. You should do this." And it's not
Yes.
nuanced and kind and guided and warm in the same way that I think you will often be used to from 17 to 22, to all of a sudden be like, "Oh gosh, I'm a grown up now. I got to make these decisions for myself." It can be really tricky.
I mean, one decision I made that I regret a little bit, but I mean, I'm happy. I love being on stage. And so I think that's the difference too. Like I don't need to
Hmm.
be a star. I love I love being on stage more than being in TV film. But I got the call back for Glee
Uh huh.
and I turned it down because my husband was like, "What are you going to do? Like my job is here. You're going to be going out to LA and da 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 da, and like leaving, we're going to have kids." And so I
Huh.
passed on that.
You're like, whoops, I'm sure your agents were thrilled about that. But you're like, thank
Yeah,
you for
yeah,
that pass.
that's for sure. When I in those moments when I was like the it girl and getting a
Hmm.
lot of buzz on TV, my agents weren't happy with me because I would pass a lot of stuff like
And
that.
you were going to be Matthew Morrison on Glee, is what you're telling me. We're breaking that
That's
on the
exactly
pod.
right.
That's what you're called back for? I got it. Interesting. Very
But it all
interesting.
worked out the way it was meant to be.
Uh,
He was much better in the part than me.
yeah, that's well, that's why you have to let go and let God. That's it. All right, I'm going to ask my first sort of complimentary question about you. I hinted at this in our pre-interview, but I often, anytime we have kind of a well-known guest on the pod that I don't know personally, I often ask Elizabeth, like, what's your one-word impression of someone? What's like the thing that what do you think about this person? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Because I'm trying to often burrow in on like, what is their superpower? What's something that we can kind of elucidate for our listeners that of how they've been so successful in the business? Maybe they're really charismatic, or they're great at vulnerability, or so that kind of thing. And the word she said for you was kindness. She was like,
Oh,
Kerry is such a kind person. That's the impression I always get from anything that I know about her. So first off, I guess, is that a label you wear consciously? Is that something you actively try to lead with kindness? I know everyone wants to be kind, but from a business perspective, is that something that maybe you're aware is a reputation, and something you try to foster?
that is very, very nice. Thank you, Elizabeth. Um, uh, I definitely, uh, I try to be a light. I try to be a light wherever I go. In all of my shows, I try to be the person who's looking out for people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I try to be there if I see someone struggling. Um, So I would say that is a goal of mine,
Hmm.
not for business purposes, just for me in life.
And of course, we know it's, yeah, I would not say, oh, this is a Machiavellian strategy to sort of pretend to be kind or whatever. But can you think of, I guess I want to throw out there, like, can you think of areas in your career or moments when you think the fact that you do lead with kindness has actually benefited you that way, that where you've now, someone's wanted to work with you because they said, I think she's just so nice. It's not about her talent. It is about the fact that she's really kind.
I don't know specific things, but I do know for sure that happens. Like Alex Timbers has called me up and asked me,
Hmm.
like, is this person nice? I only
Hmm.
want to work with nice people. and and so it definitely goes far. It definitely makes people want to work with you again if you're
Hmm.
easy and just not a lot of drama, I
Hmm.
think. Um so I don't even know if it's nice. I think it's more like just
Easy.
easygoing, like
People you
yes
want to hang out with. Yep.
and and not giving into drama, being a team player.
Yeah. Well, and I think again, it's talking about that sort of adversarial relationship with agents. I think many people in this business, most very successful artists that you could name, are extremely kind people. I think it's
I
why they've
agree.
been able to sustain a career. But I think it's not always the impression that people have of the industry from the outside. People talk about it being such a competitive, cutthroat business. It's so hard out there, which of course it is. To break into the business. But then their favorite actors are these incredibly kind, generous, warm people. Where do you see that dissonance? Why is that true? Why do we see this as, there's all these nice people. Alex Timbers is so nice. He wants to work with
Yes.
nice people. But
Yep.
then also people are feeling like I'm, pulling legs down to try to bang at the door to meet Alex Timbers or to, sort of find that, success for
Yeah,
myself.
I don't know. I think it's like just the stereotype that gets played out in movies and things like that. I mean, and it's certainly more exciting to talk about the drama.
Hmm.
So that's what gets the most press, I feel like. Or, amongst all of us, we like to dish occasionally. And so we like to talk about the person who's, not being the team player or pulling
Hmm.
us all down. Um, but yes, I think in general, most actors that I've worked with and that I know are amazing, empathetic people
Hmm.
because you have to be able to step into somebody else's shoes and make them an empathetic person.
Yep. Well, yeah. I wonder if we kind of overrepresent those examples in our heads of like
Yes,
those kind of catty people who succeed, where you go, you actually did pull someone down and it helped you. But I'm like, most of the time that doesn't work. Most of the time it's like, great, for this month, you got to sing the extra song or you got to do the thing. But then people remember that and it doesn't in the long run
that's
end up
right.
benefiting you for most people. I always feel that way with networking. Like all basically every actor's like, I hate networking. I hate that. Oh, this person's so good at it. I'm like, but if everybody thinks that person's so good at it, then everybody also kind of feels that person's a little false or a little, they're like, oh, she's really putting herself out there and, she's really so good at it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's actually working. If it feels
Right.
like that to everybody, if it feels, false.
Right, right, right. Right.
Um, why don't we take a short break? I don't know if you are running tons of ads on your podcast, but we're trying to run some ads on this pod. So why don't we take a short break
Okay.
so we can run a couple ads and then we'll come right back.
Okay.
All right, we are back with the great Kerry Butler, the kind Kerry Butler, maybe more important than the great Kerry Butler. Okay, can we get nerdy with some inside baseball? This is inside baseball about inside baseball. So
Sure.
I'd love to dive into your podcast a little bit, and
Mhm.
especially maybe to start with the impetus behind it. So, let's posit both of us have kind of a mission of demystifying access to the industry for our listeners. It seems like that's somewhere in the ethos of what you're trying to do. If that's true, what do you think is most mystifying about the industry? So where do we have it all wrong? Where are the places where young people are confused? Where are the places you're thinking I need the most help with this?
Well, my podcast started because on Instagram, I got asked over and over again, how do I break into the business? And
Mm.
it was like, God, I can't answer all these. So it was a selfish reason.
You
I
can't
was
do
like, oh my
individual
God, I
DMs.
cannot go
Yeah.
through and answer all these DMs and tell them.
Hmm.
So I started doing it on my Instagram. I started making like stories, like this is how you do it. And
Yep.
then Dory was starting the Broadway Podcast Network. And I was like, I think this might be really helpful for people.
Hmm.
And so that's how it started. And now I kind of so my first few episodes were, I think, really helpful, like how do you get an agent?
Hmm.
And I think they're helpful even for people in the industry, a lot of my
Totally.
uh podcast episodes. But Now I kind of how I pick my information is just based on like when I'm teaching, what I see people doing
Mm-hmm.
that I'm like, why?
Mm-hmm.
You like, how do you not know that you should, not be doing that right now? Uh, and even like practical things, like when I was in college, they didn't teach us about like how expensive it was to live in this city
Uh-huh.
and how you have to have a second job and how that job has to be able to let you go on auditions. So I did my last series for Breaking Broadway was pretty much all about side hustle
Uh-huh.
and like what jobs are the best jobs for people to take while they're trying to make a career and things like that, and how you can have something that's kind of in the business but
Totally. No, you often talk about you don't want it to be too good of a side job. If
that's
it's like
right.
too exciting and pulling too
Right.
much of your energy, it's of course, high paying would be good, but you're like, if it's really kind of tempting me and now I'm not doing the EPAs, like you're not going to do that. You're not going to do the
Uh-huh.
EPA. You're not going to go to it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
one somebody on my podcast, um, I can't remember who it was, but they were like, "Don't take that job, that bartender job where you're making, $500 a night.
mm-hmm,
You're gonna get trapped there, and
mm-hmm.
you're not gonna be hungry enough to go on those
It's so
auditions."
true. It's so true. Yeah, because these are all low expected value auditions when you, especially if it's an EPA or something, you go, I'm
Right.
probably not going to book it anyway.
That's
Well,
right.
I get up at
It's all they
5
have time for.
a.m. Yeah, it's so easy. It's so easy to do, especially when you're not 23 anymore. It feels like maybe the first year you're like, I can do it. I'm full of energy. And then you hit
Mhm.
27, you go, do I still have that much fire in me? Yeah. What do you, I guess I'm interested in like, so maybe from the Instagram and maybe from podcast feedback, but also I know you coach individually. What are you finding that they sort of youths, if we're going to be terrible about saying about young people, to say like, what don't they know though? What do you feel like you're, when you say, I'm so shocked that you don't know this thing, like, uh, what are the big places where you felt like they had a lot of questions, or where you still feel like even despite the information being out there, people seem to still be confused?
Well, like, one example would be so I also, okay. One example would be, if I work with somebody on a song or they're in one of my classes
Mm-hmm.
and we work on a song over and over and over again, that song should be one of your main songs that you use to audition, I think, because you've put in the work. Like
Mm-hmm.
I also have this digital course that I've been working on, and I go through all of my steps when I'm working on a song, and it's like a ton of work that I put in, like what's your subtext? What's the other person doing or
Mm-hmm.
saying? How does it connect to you personally? All this stuff. And I mean, I would work on a song with my students for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put are you gonna and then you get this audition and you're just gonna pick something that you've never worked on and try and learn
Uh-huh.
it in the last minute in 1 minute? Other people are gonna be doing those songs that they've worked on and that are amazing and so you're already starting at a big disadvantage.
Yep. So true.
So I
It's so
think
true.
that's things like that.
It's an interesting thing. I never feel older than when I'm talking about the internet and the difference in generations. But it's an interesting thing in the post-internet world that like so much information is out there. Like there,
Yes.
like your course, your digital course, but and also like YouTube has, I was with, teaching Shakespeare. I'm like, everything Mark Rylance has ever done is on YouTube. Like, go watch it. Like, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. But there's so much access to information, and yet I don't find a lot of young actors who are like deeply, deeply knowledgeable, different than our generation. It doesn't feel like the somehow the ability to have I guess imbibed all of the internet which exists out there. There are not a lot of people who are like, I'm actively using all of that information that I could get from podcasts and I can get from YouTube and I can get from all these resources. It's interesting to me that I think a 24-year-old today doesn't feel like way more educated about acting than a 24-year-old did 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think, if you go on TikTok, you just get sucked into
Mm-hmm.
watching nonsense. And
Uh-huh.
so it's almost like you have to set time aside to like pay attention to the things that can really help you
Yes.
and
Yes.
monitor yourself. And same thing happens to me.
Yep.
Like I want to keep growing and I want to keep using my time to grow as an artist and don't want to get sucked into to watching all things I shouldn't.
Well, it's totally, and it's talking about the difference between like deeper learning versus those like quick, delicious
Exactly.
snacks where you go,
Yeah,
what's the tip
yeah,
and what's the trick? Do this. Okay, Kerry said, do a song I've worked on before. Got it. That's like an easier bit of learning than like really diving in and doing the work on a piece. Like
yes.
that's what I feel like most. most of our students, when we seriously see the differences, they'll know the kind of headlines actually significantly more than our
Yes.
students did 15 years ago. They're aware of, sort of the bullet points, what are the big stuff, but very few of them have deep dived and really learned stuff on a deeper level. Occasionally someone does, and we go, my God, that student is on it, and they know, they know the stuff. But it feels like it's so hard to resist the TikTok. So hard to resist. Just do these 5 things, just sing the song, you'll get into Michigan. You go, but that's not how it is. It's not like you can't just pick the song and pick the outfit and you're done. Like it's never the quick fix. It is always the sort of the deeper learning.
Yeah, I had Caitlin Hopkins. I know you had her too on
Yes.
my podcast, and like she gave wealth of information on getting into college. But what do you tell people are the best ways to let? And Caitlin said something really interesting on my podcast. She said she doesn't care if people sing like an overdone song.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would think like it would be better to pick something that maybe everybody isn't singing. But she was like, no, if I know it, I'm okay with that. I know what notes they need to hit.
Yep. What a great example of like, when you look at the college process, there is no one right answer of like, do
Yes.
super obscure or do super well known, right? Like,
Yeah.
because that
Yeah.
is opinion. I mean, and even if you
Right.
try to like get them all to write down like what are the most overdone songs, overdone is not normally about like what is actually sung the most on a quantitative level. It's sort of like, oh, not this song again. It's like, oh, you just don't like that song is what it
Oh.
really means. And often it might mean it's got like a trap to it, or if there's a monologue and it's got like a punchline at the end that I'm kind of waiting for, it's not as exciting for me to watch because I'm waiting for the playwright to finish their job as opposed to sort of watch you finish your job. So there's some songs like that which are mostly more of opinion. I think the perspective that we come from.
Which ones do they not want to hear?
Which ones? This is now you're trying to get me to do the TikTok trick. Now you're trying to get me to the simple, quick fix. No, but really, there aren't like,
I just want to make sure I don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't make me walk in this room. No, because as soon as I could name one, someone else would go, I don't mind that one so
Yeah,
much. I mean,
yeah.
I've literally heard people saying, I'm fine with On My Own. It's like, we wouldn't recommend you walk into a room and sing On My Own. That's not like a general recommendation. I wouldn't recommend you walk in a room and do To Be or Not to Be. But somebody goes, I don't mind it. And it's a great piece and it works. And there's a reason it's famous and there's a reason it's successful. And if you do it great, I think my biggest advice would be, it is about what you do with the material more than the material.
Mm.
People are so often looking for, just tell me, what are the 2 pieces? My friend did these 2 pieces. They got into Carnegie Mellon. I should do those 2 pieces. That's going to work. I'm like, but
Right.
that was your friend. That's not you.
Yeah.
If you are just like your friend and you happen to have those exact connections to the material, sure. Those aren't bad
But it's
pieces.
not
Those
going to be
could work for
exciting
you.
anymore because they already saw your friend do it.
Well, exactly. I mean, they're going to go. I already have. I have Charlie at Carnegie Mellon. I don't need to take another. Charlie. I don't need specifically. To see what worked before. It is about what you do with the piece so much more than like, what the piece is. I think so often our families, whether it's about material selection, so many of this sort of strategic stuff, and there's a lot of strategy to the way you approach the process, but so often people are looking for like, what are the tricks that allow me to kind of like subvert the room? Like, what are the things I can do that before I even get into the room, I know I'm going to do well?
Mhm.
And I think you have to think about it like, what is the strategy to prepare me for the moments in the room? Because like in the room is where you're actually going to book the college. In the room is where you're going to make the connection. It's not, you want to think about, yes, what are the pieces you do? What are the clothes you wear? Have you practiced your interview questions? Sure, but you're not going to be able to do enough preparation that you don't still have to show up in the room and have the experience, right? It's why some people who don't spend tons of time and tons of money and tons of energy on this process can do really well if they can show up really organically, really as themselves. They pick some pieces that they love, even if they're UNESCO, even if it's not the best choice in the world, but they go, I love this material. If they're present in the room and having the experience with the college faculty might fall in love with them. They go, I know what to do with this kid. I'll get them new material. They didn't present themselves exactly right, but I see the talent and they're here. Versus if you're trying to do all of these things sort of in advance to say, I'm protected from needing to show up vulnerably in the room because I've made all the best choices. That's where sometimes, college will talk about, it can feel overcoached or it can feel,
Oh.
feel slick. It's like, you don't want to walk in feeling slick. You want to walk in like a student who's open and ready to learn.
Mm-hmm. Do you coach a lot of people for college auditions?
Oh, it's all we do. Oh,
That's all
yes,
you
of
do.
course, of course. Yeah,
So
personally,
how do you
go ahead.
help them find a monologue? Like, do you just have a wealth of information about like different monologues and things like that?
We do, and all of our coaches. We have a lot of different monologue coaches who are on the team with MTCA who have material, and that is probably the biggest area where we will present material to you because I think most students, other than maybe like Googling what is a good monologue, have
Yeah.
not read a lot of plays. They're not in that
No.
place to go. They may go, I like this one play, and we go, okay, great, but maybe this character's not quite right for you. But let's find something else from this playwright that works for you, or that is more appropriate. So we certainly do present monologues to a student. Though, the way that we do it, we always, we first do a consult with a student. We really get to know them. Think about like, what do they want to present in terms of their larger package? So within the course of 3 monologues, what are the things I want to show about myself? And then hopefully in the material itself, you're going to have a dramatic piece, maybe a comedic piece, maybe there's a lighter, more naturalistic piece. Like, we'll have a couple different options that are kind of going to triangulate so that you're telling the story of Charlie, just like your agents try to do. I'm
Yeah.
trying to walk in
Yeah.
there and go, this is Charlie, this is who I am. And then we're trying to
Smart.
present you voices that you might not have heard that feel like they fit you and the different things that you can do, right? So, you
So you
know,
interview them first just to see like,
Yes, we spend an hour just
smart.
chatting with them, talking about what are you like as a human being? We ask a big list of questions, and we're trying to dive into like, how would you want to walk in the room? Let's not even worry about monologues. Not worry about the specific playwrights. Sometimes they'll know a playwright or two, and we'll go, "Oh, you love that playwright? Great!" And so that could be then something we present. But more often than not, our musical theater students, especially, aren't like, "I love Itamar Moses," and I love They don't tend to know playwrights, but they might say, "My friends say I'm really kind of sarcastic and funny." And we go, "Okay, great. We can show you some sarcastic, funny material that maybe will feel like you." And then they'll read it out loud, and we'll talk about it, and we'll see what pieces feel like they excite you. What do you want to work on? What do you want to dive into? What are you curious about?
That's great. That's a great program.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, what do you think about? I'd love to talk about. We're both sort of coaching youth for the future of the industry. What do you think about sort of 10 years from now? What are we going to be like? So we're navigating a strike still as we record this. There still
Yeah.
is an actor strike going on,
Yeah.
just sort of out of the writer's strike, quasi at least. Broadway feels like right now is still kind of returning
It
to
is.
normal, right?
Yeah.
We were just in Times Square the other day. Like, it's not normal. It's not like what it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
What is this world looking like 10 years from now? What do you think?
I think we will get back. I think because I think during COVID, I even had like this eye-opening experience where performing theater was always felt like something selfish because it was something that I loved to do and it was like my dream. And I always felt like award shows were kind of silly because we're like, we
Mm-hmm.
already like getting to have this career is the reward. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is the icing on the cake. And we're not that important. But during COVID, I really started to see after when the world was so divided and looking out on our audience in Beetlejuice and seeing people of, all different colors, all different races, all different religious backgrounds, just laughing together and seeing each other's humanity. I was really moved and still am like, oh, this is the greater purpose
Mm-hmm.
of theater. Like I see it so clearly now, how we can get people to feel things and how we can get them to laugh together and just connect with each other, strangers. Like I remember, and I found that even more so after Beetlejuice closed and I was in the audience and just like
Mm-hmm.
talking to the people around me and like hitting them, like laughing hysterically with strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, so I do feel like our future. We have to grab onto it. It's going to grow. It's
Mm-hmm.
just taking a little bit longer than we hoped,
Yep.
but it's gonna be back to normal, even better, I think.
Yep. And
um
are
I
we?
think
What comes after? I mean, this is now. I'm truly asking you to prognosticate of something that I have no idea of. But what comes after? If eventually, let's say, we move past this sort of like pop musical phase,
uh-huh.
what comes next? Like, or is it continuing to be more and more pop? Like, do we think Broadway is going to become where it's like we have 6 Taylor Swift musicals or whatever? Like is that where we're going? Is there something beyond sort of, because it feels like that is now what is coming down the pike still too. It's not even just like what
Yeah, I
is
mean, but
you
if
know.
you think about it, jukebox musicals were always around.
Mm-hmm.
We just, like even Judy Garland, like all of them did that. They did.
Yep.
And so it's like we have there's room for everything,
Of course.
you know?
And some great jukebox musicals. I'm not anti
Oh,
jukebox
no, I
musical. Yeah.
know. I know, but
Totally.
I mean, like, there's always criticism about, like, the movie musicals, like,
Mm-hmm.
and this is just always it's always we always go through these phases, and we and it's just it is what it is, like,
Mm-hmm.
there's still room for great original musicals, like
Yes.
Hadestown, and so I don't think it's gonna be only one thing, But, it is Broadway especially is, for money and for tourists.
Yep.
So that's going to be what it is. And yeah, now we're getting into Melissa Etheridge is on Broadway now doing her one-person show. So, and I think
Hmm.
we're getting more into maybe, like you said, maybe a Taylor Swift musical. I would not doubt that for anything.
I
Like
think that would
that's,
sell pretty well. Yeah. But you're, I mean, it's just getting wider, the kind of pop that's on the Broadway, or the kind of
I
pop
think
music. Yeah,
so. Yeah,
totally.
yeah. But I do think that there is and will be room for everything.
Yeah. And are you a technologist? Are you into like the AI of it all? Like, I'm sort of wondering, I'm like, are we all going to be replaced by podcast robots in 10 years? I mean, is that going to be like, what is, we have not yet really seen, we've seen technology present on Broadway, but we haven't really seen the like, it feels like we're at the cusp of what is a hybrid streamed Broadway experience that almost feels like it could shift to something different. And I kind of wonder what that is, especially because you're also talking about the antithetical part of that, which is the live experience and being and rubbing shoulders and not sitting on your couch watching a Broadway musical.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you see Here Lies Love?
I didn't. I haven't
Oh
yet.
my God, I love Here Lies
It's
Love.
closed. No, it's not
No,
closed
it's
yet.
still
Yes, we're
open.
going to see
You
it.
have
It's
to
on
see
our
it.
list. We've four shows that we're trying to see in the next month, and we're trying to book babysitters as we speak.
I mean, Here Lies Love is just like, I mean, for sure, something completely new, where Alex Timbers took
Hmm.
out all the seats. And I did it 2 times now, and I was on the floor both times.
Mm.
And it's just like such an incredible experience. So incredible he did that. So, there's always, who knows? I just don't think about it. I just trust that whatever is meant to be, we're going to be fine.
Yep.
And
And there'll
I'm
be a
not going to
part for
like
Kerry
start worrying
Butler
about
in one of
AI.
those shows. Hopefully, we hopefully go, and I will
But
take
like,
that part.
but I think Here Lies Love just shows that like we don't know what, because
Yeah.
who would think you would take all the theaters out of a Broadway
Yep.
state theater?
Yep.
Who would think that's possible? Who would think anybody would be crazy enough to do that?
Yep.
And oh my gosh, it's an incredible, incredible experience and really fresh and like nothing you've ever seen before.
That's super cool. Okay, well, what if we wrap with? I often ask our guests sort of about advice. Is there a piece of advice that you feel like you wish maybe you knew before you started out? But maybe you get asked
Yeah.
it a lot on your pod, and you go, I would have been asking this question of my version of Kerry Butler back then.
Um, I would say, like I always ask, like, oh, what would you say to your younger self?
Uh-huh.
So I would
That's
say,
I often ask that
like,
exact question. Yes, answer it. Have you answered on your pod, or is this the first time we get you to answer it now?
I don't think I have
Let's go.
answered it.
The
I definitely haven't answered
breaking
on my own
Broadway,
podcast.
breaking Butler right here.
I mean, I've said this a lot, but not on my podcast or anything like that. So I was, a big nerd and always like super afraid of what people thought of me, and I think that's where my acting, maybe that was why I got the probation letter, because
Hmm.
I wasn't free,
Hmm.
and once I embraced the things I was so afraid of the world seeing, like I embraced my nerdiness, I
Hmm.
embraced my quirkiness. That is when I got work and found myself.
Mm.
So it's like when I embraced that I don't have to be like everybody else, when I let go of being afraid of what people thought of me, that was a big one.
Hmm.
And just could be like, I don't care. I don't care what the results are. I'm just going to throw paint at this wall. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to worry about people laughing at me.
Uh-huh.
And I think, like as a child, I was like bullied and made fun of a lot. And so I think that's where that came from. And now it's like, even, with anything I do, like if I get bad reviews, it's so easy for me to like just let it go.
Uh-huh. And what was the experience, I guess, of feeling trapped? I mean, I don't mean to trigger you or make this a whole therapy session, but were you literally hearing negative thoughts? Were you hearing, don't do that, Kerry, that's stupid? Or what made you feel like in acting school when you were, because certainly think many young actors know that experience of feeling stuck or feeling held back. But if you're thinking about like how you were able to release that, like
I
what
don't think
was
it
that
wasn't
experience?
voices in my head. It was more like wanting to please people
Uh-huh.
and and instead of just being,
Uh-huh.
wanting to be what people thought I should, or what I thought I should present to the world. I didn't know I was funny back then. So once I
Hmm.
found out I could be funny, because I had again, no training in school or anything like that. My parents did take me into the city for acting lessons, but I never found out that I could be funny. And
Hmm.
being funny, you have to be okay with people laughing at you. And I was always
Right.
so like being embarrassed to me would be the worst possible thing that could
Uh-huh.
happen.
And then once you
And now I'm
embrace
just
that,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm fine with being embarrassed. I'm
That's, well,
fine.
interesting. You're talking about Beetlejuice. That's not so dissimilar to what Alex Brightman would talked about on the pod, of sort of him
Really?
embracing the mistakes. Like once you can really get into like this might be terrible, that's where
Yes.
you find this might be awesome or whatever. You have to
Yes.
sort of find that release. That's interesting. I mean, I think that's it's not too dissimilar to what was holding me back in school, which I feel like was almost always about like my relationship with confidence. I think as like a young person, and I often talk about it with our young, our students, that I think young 17-year-olds often are like are afraid of confidence in a way that I think I was too, of like I sort of was worried about being cocky. I was worried about people are going to view me like owning my space in a negative way. I'm 6'4" and I have a low voice,
Mhm.
and that people are going to sort of be like, oh, he thinks so much of himself. And I,
Oh,
I think I found myself just like twisting myself in knots so hard to not take up space. I still do it sometimes, but
wow.
trying so hard not to like be confident, even though actually inside I was like, I'm perfectly confident. I know I'm good. I know I'm whatever, but that I
Yeah.
sort of wasn't letting myself just like be as good as I was, exactly where I was. Not, not more so, not sort of arrogantly like I'm
Yes.
better than everyone else, but yeah, I definitely had a lot of those experiences in school of just being like, just make sure everyone knows that you like don't think too much and that you're not,
Yes.
you really
Yes,
just,
worried about those silly kinds of
yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. Well, Kerry, if more people want to hear more things from you, we know they can check out Breaking Broadway on BPN
Yes.
alongside us, our wonderful podcast network. Are there other places, socials and such that you like people to
Oh,
follow?
so many. And just to be super confusing, they all have different handles.
Okay, and you spell your name slightly differently in each one, is what
Yes,
you're saying.
this
Great.
and this is something that young actors should never do. I learned on my podcast. So do as I say, not as I do.
Hmm.
On Instagram, I'm Kerry Butler 1.
Uh-huh. With
I
two
also
T's,
have
Butler with two T's, is this? No,
no,
no, nothing else.
KB, Butler.
Yep.
I'm also Kerry Butler Coach on Instagram because I didn't
Uh-huh.
want to bombard my regular like fan base with all of my coaching inspirational posts.
This also is
Um,
terrible to strategy, by the way. You should be bombarding them with your coaching so that you'll get more business. This is terrible, Kerry. We got to sit you
well,
with
yeah, I
a
mean,
marketing
I
person.
don't know. I mean, some of the people that follow me don't care about, like acting, so I
Of
don't
course.
want to.
Yeah. No, I'm joking. Yeah. So Kerry Butler coach, Kerry Butler one. Okay, great. And are there
And
other
then
things
on
we should follow?
TikTok, I'm
Oh
Kerry Butler
no.
NYC.
Oh no. Kerry Butler NYC on TikTok. Okay, great. This is not so hard yet. And what are we on
Um,
LinkedIn or what else? What else we got?
Oh, I am on LinkedIn, but
Kidding.
yeah,
No
I
one
think
should
I'm
be
just
following
mainly on
you on
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
I'm on
Yeah.
TikTok, but I'm on Twitter, but I'm not posting on Twitter anymore. I'm
Right.
boycotting Twitter.
Xing out
But
of
yeah,
Twitter.
yeah, yeah.
But are you a big TikToker? Have you enjoyed the
I
dive?
do. I feel like Beetlejuice was huge on TikTok, so I
Uh-huh.
kind of I'm making TikToks for mostly like for my podcast, kind of like acting advice, things
Yes.
like that.
I love it. And are you also consuming social media? What is your relationship with social media consumption?
Ugh, yeah, I'm addicted, unfortunately, and I
Oh no.
definitely try not to be.
Okay, Carrie, that's the second half of the podcast. We're gonna spend another hour de-addicting you to social media. I love it. But and is TikTok your drug of choice?
No,
No,
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah, that's an
Yeah.
age. That's our generation is more. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
get
and
into it's too fast.
I try and set alarms for myself to
Mm.
not go and then I turn them
You work
off
right
and
through the alarm. You snooze right through that thing. What is now? I'm getting too deep on you, but what is the what's filling your Instagram? What are you swiping on constantly? Are you look other
Well,
friends
right
or
now I'm swiping on, 2 things, the war and
oof,
dogs
the war and dogs? So you make
to
yourself feel
balance
terrible, and then
each
you make
other
yourself feel better.
out.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I need a good dog video or an animal video as soon as I watch something horrible
Ah,
about the war happening.
that's so interesting. I have not yet flipped over to Instagram becoming political for me. I mean, Twitter is political, and Facebook has been political content. I've yet to sort of had Instagram be
Well, I
my
feel
political
like you
content.
can't escape it right now. I
Yeah.
don't look that out, but then
Uh-huh.
once I start seeing it, I get drawn in. I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god,
Yeah.
I have to do something," like it's
Yeah, totally,
so
totally. Elizabeth will spend hours looking at housing. we just bought an apartment too. I'm like, we just did this. It should
I
just
like
be
that too. I haven't
Zillow
done that
all
in a
day.
while, but I do me and my family would be interested in, like, going to open houses just even if you're not looking and stuff like
Totally.
that.
No, it's so fun. But you should be like, do you follow this like Zillow crazy blah blah blah? I'm like, no, I don't. You're doing this consciously. You're forcing yourself. It's a great follow. It's a great follow.
I know that site actually too.
Yeah, yeah, it's terrible. So follow Kerry Butler one and Crazy Zillow whatever on Instagram. All right, awesome, Kerry. This was so fun having you on.
So fun having you on.
Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you so much. Thanks for those great tips.
You bet.